Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We have a great guest today. His name is Vance Morris, and he has a great, interesting background. Spent 10 years at Disney as a Disney leader, and then he went out on his own, and he now owns 3 businesses, and he's taken the principles from Disney and turned them into successful businesses that he runs that have nothing to do with Disney. We'll tell you more about them in just a moment, but we're going to learn what he's doing to be successful and about anybody can take the Disney principles and apply them to their business as well. Before we get into the interview, you know the announcement if you've listened to the show before. If you've got an amazing story you want to share or you've got a question, reach out to me on any social media channel. I am probably going to be there. And if you have a question, use the hashtag AskShep. I'll answer the question right there in the social channel, or I'll answer it on this show or in my newsletter, which is the Shepherd Letter. And to get that, it's free. All you have to do is go to hyken.com, HYKEN.com, and just register for the newsletter. And you'll also get my annual customer service and experience research. All right, let's jump into the interview with Vance Morris. Vance, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Shep. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to having some fun here.
I'm really looking forward to this for a couple of reasons. Number one, you worked at Disney, which is one of my favorite companies of all time. I never actually worked there, but I had I would say the honor of being hired to speak to cast members about guest service. And I thought to myself, this is preaching to the choir. What can I share with them? I just came at them with a different perspective. And what I love about what we're going to talk about today, and I've had great Disney people on board, Dennis Snow, Lee Cockrell, a few others that have been on my show that worked at Disney and currently are out there in the world teaching companies how to do the Disney thing. And what's unique about our interview today, Vance, is that you don't do that. But what you did is you took your 10 years of experience at Disney and you turned it into the successful things you're doing at your current businesses. And you have 3 of them. They're, for lack of a better term, home. How did you refer to them?
Home services.
Home services, right. And carpet cleaning being one, mold remediation, which I hope nobody ever uses. And then you also specialize in cleaning Oriental rugs. And by the way, we laughed about that because every time I mention my mother's Oriental rugs, my wife says, you can't call them that anymore. And your comment, Vance, was, well, you might not want to do that as you're talking about people, but still the rug is a rug, not a big deal. So no offense.
I'll let you off the hook on that one.
Anybody was there. But my mother's rugs were beautiful. That was for sure. Anyway, 10 years at Disney, and now you're using this experience to be successful with your business. So why don't we just do a real quick background on you, Vance, and what you found just so important to that 10-year experience that you had that you've brought into your company?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, it's probably something that many of your listeners aren't even thinking of, and it's not customer service or how to pick up trash before it hits the ground. It's systems and processes. Everything at Disney runs on a system. And I learned that early in my career. And that's one of the first things I implemented when I started my own businesses, because systems give you freedom. And so I started putting systems in place early on. And when it came time for me to kind of step away from the business, I still own them, but I was able to put a general manager in place and tell him, look, systems are in place, manage the systems. Here's the marketing system. Here's the operations system, the sales system. Manage these and you're going to be just fine. And lo and behold, he was. And those systems freed me up to go and do what I love, which is the coaching and the consulting on the customer experience. It gives you freedom. And it's not a sexy answer, but
it's a great answer. It's a great answer. And again, what I love is that you have taken what you've learned and you've applied it to your business, and now you're helping other companies do it for theirs. So one of the comments that you made in some of the notes that I have here is experience is the only differentiator in a world of sameness. So let's dive into that concept, because I believe most everybody sells the same thing. There are other carpet cleaning companies out there. There's other mold remediation companies. It doesn't matter what you sell. There is a competitor selling exactly or something very close to what you do. The big difference between the two companies or other competitors, there could be 10 companies, is going to be some type of differentiation, and it's probably coming down to the experience. So let's dive into that one a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, no offense to dentists, but a dentist is a dentist is a dentist.
Yeah,
There's
if
only
they're
so many
good, all
ways
they
to
do is
clean
they
teeth.
pull teeth well.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many ways to clean teeth. And, it's like two or three. One, they squirt water. Two, they got the brush. I mean, that's kind of it. So a quick story. So I worked with a string of service stations, similar to like a Quick Lube, Jiffy Lube kind of guy, but he was independent, tired of competing on coupons, and he was just getting couponed to death. And he was, because that's what everybody else was doing. And I said, well, let's look the other direction. Let's look at turning your oil change business into a premium level service. I said, look, I did it with carpet cleaning, which is not exactly, high on the totem pole of home service businesses we're looked down on. I think we can do it with oil change. So we did exactly that. We looked at the oil change business and we're like, okay, what can we do? So long story short, we kind of turned it into one of those like 1950s service stations where like four guys run out. One dude's squeegeeing your windshield. One guy's checking the air in your tires. They got white shirts and black ties on. There's a guy escorts you into the waiting room, and there's not 3-day-old stale coffee. There's actually a barista in there making your favorite coffee drink. And this guy's charging 40% more than his closest competitors in a highly commoditized market.
Now you're talking about the
thing.
lube service now, not the, but it's similar. By the way, for those that have no idea what Vance is talking about, go to YouTube and type in old Texaco gasoline station commercials, and you'll see exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, I know. I got to watch my references. Sometimes they fall flat, like record player.
What's that?
Exactly.
But actually, the turntable has made a huge comeback in the last few
It
years.
has.
Yeah,
it has.
Mm-hmm.
But
cassette tapes. Now that's one people might not remember.
Yeah, or 8-tracks.
Or 8-tracks, right?
All
right. So back to charging more because they elevated the experience and probably made it seem like, wow, this is great. I get to go and get a cup of. It's like going into my car dealership and I have to wait for service, and they have created this gorgeous waiting room with TVs, desks for me to sit at, great Wi-Fi, fast Wi-Fi, and of course, snacks and beverages.
Yep. And when you do that, it starts a flywheel, whereas you charge more for the experiences you're providing. So you can take some of that and you put that in your own pocket, but then you take some of that and you reinvest it in the business and create a better experience. And then you charge a little bit more. You take that, you put it in your pocket, and you take some of that and you put that, reinvest that into the business. And it's just a continue. Once you get that flywheel moving and your creativity going, I mean, the guy, the barista at this guy's store, oil change places, they're all the mechanics. So like, you got the guy that's down below that does the
changes the oil, unscrews the valve.
When he's not needed downstairs, he's the guy making the coffee drinks. And then when the guys, when he's needed downstairs, one of the guys who does the window squeegeeing, he goes inside. They love it.
They're cross-trained to serve coffee. And if it doesn't work out at the Jiffy Lube type place, they could always go to Starbucks.
Right, exactly. But, when they did that, one, he's got a line out the door. He does not have a capacity issue. He's just,
how did he communicate this value proposition to the public?
Well, one, we did a huge grand opening. Disney's famous for their grand openings. They essentially have one every day. They call it the rope drop. If you've ever experienced that.
When you're if you're there early enough, you'll experience the grand opening.
Yep. And so I think we did it for a full month. we did essentially a rope drop every day at his place, similar to almost like a Chick-fil-A when they first opened, like the first 100 people get a free Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Right.
We did that. First 100 people, free oil change on the first day.
Yep.
So we created the buzz, and as soon as they started coming in, and as soon as they had we had the press there, the local news was there. We actually even had the helicopter guys come in for the local TV stations. It was great.
Wow, that sounds like fun. And I think that's great. So you differentiate with the value prop that goes beyond price and even general customer service. It's expected today that you would deliver customer service. Customer experience, though, is different. Service is wrapped into experience. Experience is all these other ideas that you're sharing to help differentiate and get rid of sameness. Now, speaking of service, you and I both have the same philosophy that customer experience and therefore service begins before the sale.
Certainly does. Certainly does. It begins with your marketing. It begins with your preparation, your training. 100%. I think that your experience begins with that first touch, whatever that is. Is it a postcard? Is it a website? Is it a phone call? Whatever that is, that first touch, that is the first part of the experience.
Yeah, when we're talking about the idea with clients and the customer experience, they don't get just how important what happens during a Google search. Obviously, you want to be ranked so you can get somebody to click on your spot, and eventually, generative AI programs like ChatGPT are going to send back pieces of information versus choices of websites to go to. So a lot of this is going to change, but today it's still relevant, at least for a short term. Maybe it might 6 months, another year and a half before things really start to change into that generative AI thing. But for right now, if somebody gets you on a Google search and they click on your little link, right then and there, that experience really needs to begin. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about your concept about customer loyalty, how it's earned and not bought. Love that idea. And I've seen some of your talking points there. And we'll talk a little bit about retention versus acquisition. It's far less expensive to keep those customers than to keep chasing after new ones. No doubt about that. And who knows what else we're going to talk about. But I do know this. We are talking with Vance Morris, who is formerly with Disney and now an entrepreneur who not only owns 3 businesses, but also helps businesses come along and do the successful things that he has learned through his time at Disney. And I also want to throw this out. I mentioned this in the introduction, that he is a former birth control factory security guard turned Disney leader. You've come a long way, even since being a Disney leader, Vance. I love having you on the show. Don't go away. We're coming right back. Shep Hyken here with an offer that won't cost you a cent. You may have heard me talk about my annual customer service and experience research. We've surveyed thousands of customers matching the U.S. Census for age, gender, ethnicity, and geography, and we find out what customers love, hate, and want in a customer experience. What's the number one customer experience that almost every customer desires? What makes them come back? What makes them leave? Why won't they fill out surveys? What do they think of AI? Well, these questions and more are answered in the research, which, by the way, is sponsored this year by RingCentral, a leader in global communications. You can download the full report by going to hyken.com and clicking on the research tab at the top. Like I said, it won't cost you a cent, but it may make you or save you thousands and thousands of dollars when you understand your customers' expectations. Again, the website is www.hyken.com.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We are back on Amazing Business Radio talking with Vance Morris, formerly at Disney, now an entrepreneur, and not only owner of 3 businesses, but helping other businesses be successful. We've talked a little bit about how experience is your big differentiation point and what you did with one of your clients. We've talked a little bit about that service and experience happens the moment that first touch takes place. Even if you're not even talking to an employee of the company, you may be on their website, you may be looking at an ad, postcard, as you mentioned. But I want to talk about loyalty now. I know this is your comment. Loyalty doesn't come from points or discounts. It comes from consistently exceeding expectations. A lot of companies have loyalty programs. And I even talked to a gentleman recently who's going to be an episode maybe 2 weeks before ours airs, who mentioned to me that a loyalty program does drive loyalty. I didn't want to argue with him. I do believe that if you manage the experience correctly, the points and perks are really a benefit to doing business with a company, but shouldn't necessarily be the reason you do business with them. Because if they, and for those that can't see this, and I know you can't, Vance is shaking his head and agreeing with me, and so, which is great. But I believe that points and perks, as I mentioned, it's a benefit and it's a marketing plan to get people to maybe come back. But if your experience isn't great, as soon as there's a similar program or anything that is better than what you have, you're going to lose that customer. So let's jump into your concepts of customer loyalty.
And I mean, I do it. I mean, it's something. It's part of the marketing plan for the year. We're going to have a contest. We're going to have we'll do a punch card or something. I get it. It's something fun, and it is more of a reward to our local to our repeat customers. I have a couple of coffee houses that are clients, and they know that they're giving away stuff to their regulars. They fully know that. Otherwise, it's just a bribe, and you're rewarding bad behavior, because as soon as the punch card's filled, they get their free cup of coffee, they're off to the next place. And I think a lot of the loyalty happens when an emotional connection is created between the employee and the guest or the customer. And I'm not talking a romantic one. I'm talking
Right.
true.
You want customers to say, "I love doing business with them,"
Exactly.
and them is often one person that made the difference.
And that's the thing at Disney. I mean, 80% of people have been to Disney before. And one of the top reasons that they go back is the individual cast members that made it special. It's not the ride, the entertainment, the cleanliness, it's the cast. And, I've found in everything I do is if you can create an emotional connection with your customers, one, they give you a lot of latitude. So if you do screw up, they're a lot more forgiving.
Right.
But they also tend to stick with you longer. Now, I shamelessly use my children in my marketing. My daughter used to do ballet. I mean, she's 17 now, but when she was 5 years old, I did the obligatory picture of her in her tutu for ballet. And I put it in my newsletter. And then I did that every year. Every year I got the picture of the tutu and put it in the newsletter. And I think when she was about 10 years old, we were in the grocery store, and this woman came running up to her and didn't even look at me, went through it right to my daughter and said, "Oh my God, Emma, how was your recital?" And Emma and I looked at each other like, "Who the hell is this lady?" We were ready to run away. And then I was like, "It's got to be one of my customers." She has watched my daughter grow up. She has an emotional connection with my company. She's never leaving. I mean, I have to royally do something wrong, screw up, for this lady to leave my company. Now, do you have to go to that extent? No. But should you find ways to create those connections? When I do keynotes and speeches and things, I find ways to weave in different parts of my life so that I can connect with different parts of the audience. I'll joke that I've been married a few times. Okay, great. So I connected with the divorced people out there. Or, that I used to have a stutter. Okay, great. So now the few people that have stutters, I've connected with. And at the end of it, I've probably connected with 40-50% of the audience just by dropping little connection points. And that's what businesses have to do is, I'm not saying put your shoe size out there or something silly like that, but, talk about your dog, talk about your families, put something in a newsletter that's interesting, and create that loyalty through a connection and don't get me wrong, your service and good service that is like the low barrier to entry. That's like, you got to have that. That's it right there.
Table stakes.
Yeah. And then you can go higher, but loyalty is all about the people. I've got people, they call up, I'd like to get my carpet cleaned. I say, okay, great. We can have Paul over there tomorrow. Oh, no, we want Steven. Oh, well, Steven's booked until next week. That's fine. We'll wait for Steven, so they've got a
Steven
connection
must have
with,
done something special to
yeah,
get that kind of attention and be remembered like that. Let's brainstorm some, just riff on this a little bit. What are other ways to create that emotional connection? Off the top of my head, I'm thinking, aside from the table stakes of just delivering the basics, how about a cause? Maybe as a local charity or a local community issue, or even an international community issue. And you look
yep,
at Patagonia, who's known for being so sustainable and caring about things outdoors, or REI, that store, I'm thinking. But then Ace Hardware, who's one of my great clients, who I wrote a book and used them as a role model. When we first rolled out the book, I gave 10% of the proceeds to the Children's Miracle Network, which was their major charity of choice. People really appreciated that.
yep. Yeah, I mean, we do the local, not the animal shelters.
Yeah.
That are run by the counties. We have a pet, for lack of a better term, pet urine treatment. Anytime we sell that, we take a portion of that that sale, and it's donated to the county shelters.
Yep. So all of this is leading to, what do we do to create the engagement that gets customers to say, I'll be back? I got that line from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Actually, I wrote a book titled that, and it took about 3 sentences into the outline to realize, okay, that's his line, but it applies to customer service and experience as well. So let's talk about retention for just a moment. We all know this stat. It's far more expensive to keep going out and getting new customers than to keep the existing ones we have.
Yeah, it is. And, one of the other things I want to make sure I stress is that it is not the customer's job to remember us. It is our job as business owners to remind the customers we exist and why we exist. You mentioned, expense. For me, in the carpet world, it cost me $100 to get a new client in the front door. That ain't cheap. But on the flip side, it costs me $20 a year to keep them, with postcards and emails and newsletters and things like that. So you can
Pictures
see
of your daughter in a tutu.
and my daughter in a tutu. It doesn't hurt. But you can see immediately when I have a second cleaning with a customer, I'm immediately $80 higher in profit because I don't have to buy a new one. They already know, like, and trust, right? We've got that settled. They are more apt to buy more services because they've already bought before. They're the easiest ones, and all they need is a little nudge. Sometimes all they need is a reason. But primarily, they just like to be recognized that the company cares, and I'm not always selling to them. Like the newsletter that I send out a monthly print newsletter, like real in the mail thing, which the post office, by the way, has the best deliverability rate in the world compared to any email provider. They're still at 99%.
Right.
Most email providers are like in the 60s. This one, 99.
If that.
And there's no competition in the mailbox. But nobody wants to always be sold to. I mean, if the only time you ever hear from a company is when they want to sell you their crap, that's not a relationship. So the newsletter for me is an opportunity to stay in front of them. It's kind of like Reader's Digest Light. I include the tutu, I include stories, Sudoku puzzle, just stuff like that. But it's an opportunity to stay in front of them, non-salesy, but it's top of mind awareness. And if you took away all of my other marketing, the last thing I would ever allow you to take away from me would be my newsletter. This is
Really? That's
it's
how powerful it is. Yeah. Very good. Well, we're running out of time, and I've warned you, there's a final question here,
Yep.
and I want you to answer it. What's the last one idea you want to share with our listeners that they could go out, implement, and start to create a better experience as a result?
Well, we've covered a lot. And I am of the firm belief that we all have enough information. We just don't have enough implementation. So take one idea that you've heard either on this podcast or somewhere else, and tomorrow morning go implement it. Just pick one and do something. I don't have too many phrases. Actually, I have no phrases, no sayings, except for one, and it is, you won't profit unless you implement. So that is my parting advice to you. Just
I
do
like
something.
that. And I want to break it down a little bit further. I often go to conferences or I'll listen to a show like this and I'll come up with a half a dozen great ideas. And by the way, Vance, you've given us a number of great ideas. I'm going to say it exceeded a half a dozen today. But which one should I implement? I'm going to make it real easy, everybody. Just choose the one that seems like it's easiest to implement. That's the one you want to do tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, all right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. This has been a great interview, great insights. Thank you so much.
Shep, thanks so much for having me on the program. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. That wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We will be back next week with another interview. And until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.